Mental health matters to each and every one of us. It matters just as much as our physical health. The crews I've worked with, whether RAF Search and Rescue or Air Ambulance, must take their mental health as seriously as they do their physical health, or else they would not cope. And actually, that is true for everybody at some time or another in life.
1 in 4 people in our country will experience mental health problems at some point in their lives. Think about that for a moment. 1 in every 4 people in this room. 1 in every 4 people you work with. 1 in every 4 people you pass in the street. In every classroom in Britain, there are on average 3 children who will have a mental health problem.
A majority of us at some point or another are going to suffer with a mental health condition, however minor or severe it may be. It's going to happen. We're all going to struggle at some point. I don't understand why people are so shy to talk about it. I suffer.
Talking to someone else is a positive and confident step to take. But for too long, it has been a case of keep quiet and carry on. As a result, too many people have suffered in silence for too long, and the effects of this can be devastating. The 3 of us are really optimistic that things are changing. We believe that 2017 can mark a tipping point for mental health. A moment when more and more people no longer feel they have to bear the weight alone for fear of judgment.
Making kids aware of mental health issues from a young age is only going to help in the same way that they teach sex education. A lack of education leads to a lack of understanding, which can often lead to ignorance, and that's the worst thing. As far as what we can do as a society and just as people, sometimes when you see someone going through something, it can feel like it's easier to shy away because you don't want to offend them by saying, come on man, like you're not talking to me, there is something wrong, I can see it. But as a friend, that's your duty. You need to do that.
There are times when, whoever we are, it is hard to cope with challenges. And when that happens, being open and honest and asking for help is life-changing.
To answer my questions and gain more knowledge on the subject of mental health, I will be interviewing Senior Counsellor Julie.
Okay, hi, I'm Julie. I'm a counsellor and also counselling supervisor and trainer. I've been a counsellor now for about 10-11 years. Have a private practice and also I work for employee assistance programmes as a senior clinical team member. There's lots of reasons why I first became a counsellor. It started many years ago when I always felt that other people seemed to think that they knew me better than I knew myself, had opinions on how I felt and what I should be doing, and it sort of led me into feeling, or just going into a job actually that wasn't really me, it was to please other people. But found that I had a real tendency to know what other people were feeling, to be really in tune with other people. And it just gradually evolved over many, many years of doing a job that, where selling home insurance seemed to be the most important thing in my day, according to my managers, with actually the people that I used to see when I was working in the bank, really developing a relationship with those people and finding out about them. And I started to do some counselling training, and again, it just evolved over many years, so it was never a conscious decision of, right, I'm going to give up this and become a counsellor. So there's a couple of ways that people could get involved and bring about change. One would be by lobbying government, getting statistics together to find out where this money has gone that should have been allocated to CAMHS, children's mental health. And also at a more local level, bearing in mind that our Prime Minister is our local MP, our local services are having funds cut year on year, and the waiting lists grow year on year because they get referrals from the NHS, which is underfunded, and social services, etc. And the other thing that could be looked at is how we view mental health, because everybody is who, from having a psychotic episode to bereavement, so they're off work for a few weeks following a bereavement, it's all called mental health, and to me that doesn't seem right. So we can do with getting away with the stigma of calling it all mental health, when sometimes it is just a perfectly normal reaction to an everyday life or death event.
To gain a different perspective on this subject of mental health, I will interview Gina, who is currently battling with depression.
So I think you want to know my story of my experiences with mental health system. So some background is November 2015, I was diagnosed with depression, which was caused by work-related stress. I was in quite a high-level job, working as a senior lecturer somewhere, and I had about 3 years of chronic stress, which led to my depression. I was crying a lot, couldn't cope, and ended up at my GP surgery. The first GP I saw, because I also ended up with bronchitis at the same time, the first GP I saw just wanted to sign me off for bronchitis. She totally ignored the fact that I was there crying my eyes out and obviously, I think, unable to cope. When I had to go back and be checked a week later, that's when the first GP, different GP, recognised that I was mentally unwell and did all the assessments and said I was depressed and put me on antidepressants, and then told me to refer myself to something called Healthy Minds, which is a psychotherapy service. Being referred or being told to self-refer when you're very depressed is, I don't think, very effective, because if you're that depressed, it's actually quite hard to get up in the morning, let alone have the courage to pick up a phone and speak to somebody you don't know and make a referral. So although she advised me to do that in November, it took me 2 months to actually be able to pick the phone up and make that call. In the meantime, I was on the medication and I was having panic attacks. Just normal social life was extremely difficult for me to manage. So once I picked the phone up though, the people were really nice, they're very understanding, so even though I was in floods of tears, because talking about what was going on with me was really hard, they put me on a waiting list. That's fine, there are waiting lists, but I needed help there and then, really, to get better. Gradually my antidepressants were increased because I wasn't improving, and then I was finally assessed by somebody in Healthy Minds, and they put me on to what I now understand is step 1, which was computer-based CBT. You have an online supporter, and sometimes they will actually speak to you as well. That was helpful because I'm IT literate and I can actually access those sorts of things, and it helped make a bit of sense. But because what had caused my depression to me was, I found it really quite traumatic, there was no opportunity to discuss that with anybody and help to really start to put things back together. So then I completed that course of therapy about, I'm trying to think, it might be about April time of 2016. So once I picked the phone up though, the people were really nice, they're very understanding, so even though I was in floods of tears, because talking about what was going on with me was really hard, they put me on a waiting list. That's fine, there are waiting lists, but I needed help there and then, really, to get better. Gradually my antidepressants were increased because I wasn't improving, and then I was finally assessed by somebody in Healthy Minds, and they put me on to what I now understand is step 1, which was computer-based CBT. You have an online supporter, and sometimes they will actually speak to you as well. That was helpful because I'm IT literate and I can actually access those sorts of things, and it helped to make a bit of sense. But because what had caused my depression to me was, I found it really quite traumatic, there was no opportunity to discuss that with anybody and help to really start to put things back together. So then I completed that course of therapy about, I'm trying to think, it might be about April time of 2016. At the end of that therapy, I had a conversation with my supporter. Actually, it might have been May, come to think of it. And anyway, that's one of the problems, is now my memory's not very good. So I spoke to her, and I obviously was still scoring too high on all the different things that they do. And although the online CBT started to make me understand that, you know, there may be things that I can do differently, it wasn't helping me. So I ended up by then on maximum dose. I was already on maximum dose of antidepressants, which I'm still on today. And I was then put on another waiting list, and that one was for group therapy, anxiety management, which again goes through CBT. So I finally got to attend those sessions, and they were good, an extremely good leader, really skilled worker, and it was really nice to share things with other people, and it helped me realise, and I think everybody else in the room, that what we were going through, we weren't alone. There are other people like us, that we're not abnormal, we're just a different version of normal, or what is normal. So that was really good, but I was still traumatised really, still not being able to function properly, still having panic attacks when I go on a plane or just crowds of people, and at the end of that course it was apparent that I still wasn't better. So we're now talking, again, I don't know, about July time of 2016. So then I was referred on to step 3, which was one-to-one CBT with a therapist. I started those sessions, and they have been really good, but as a service it's been quite amazing. I'm lucky, I drive, I have access to a car, I'm well enough to be able to drive. At the beginning I wouldn't have been able to, and the first sessions were very local to me, and after 2 sessions there I was told I had to move, and I had to go to another place which was over half an hour away, because the sessions I were having were in a surgery and only patients from that surgery were allowed to be seen. It strikes me as a bit daft that there was basically one area in High Wycombe that I couldn't go to it because I wasn't a patient in that surgery. So I carried on going to Aylesbury. The sessions have been really good. It's been the thing that I've needed all along and has really helped me, because it's one-to-one, we can explore things in greater depth, and it's given me the tools to help manage my illness. And then, just to highlight how the services are, I then had to go from a half-hour journey to an hour journey to access the same therapist. And I don't think people appreciate how hard it is to build up a trusting relationship with a therapist that you don't want to lose. So again, I'm lucky I could actually afford to and drive to the therapist. I'm still being seen by her. It's 16 months since my diagnosis. I've not returned to work since then. I'm still deemed to be unfit for work because I cannot cope with high levels of stress and various other things. And my next appointment is soon with my therapist. She's been brilliant, and I think had I been able to access her help earlier, I may have got better quicker. Instead of having to go through the levels, there was no real sense that maybe I needed something different than the normal steps that were offered to me. I think from someone who suffered from a mental health illness, and I want to use the term illness because I think as society we are really bad. I have to be honest and say that before I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression, I had perhaps been less understanding of people with depression, and you hear it always talked about, pull yourself together, why can't you get on with it? But unless you're the person going through that, you don't really understand. I think I'm probably a better person from having been through this, although it has been really dramatically life-changing for me. I cannot continue with the career I had, for instance, but I think if as a society we can think that the mental health issues are illnesses, we would be less harsh on the people that suffer from them. If I turned up to work or I wasn't going to work because I'd broken my leg, everybody would have sympathy and send me flowers and wish me better. But when you have a mental health issue, you find that people don't know how to talk to you. And even then, I've just used the word issue, illness. It is an illness, and there is a big stigma out there in society for people that might be suffering from an illness, and I'd like to see that change. I'd like people to campaign, and I think some famous people are doing that, but it needs to be ordinary people as well. One of the things I was really aware of as a mother was that I didn't want my children to be worried about it all. I didn't want them to worry, so I used to make a joke about it. I used to say, oh dear, it's, you can't help it because your mum's a nutter. And that's quite offensive really, but it was my way of deflecting it because I didn't want them to worry. Had I had cancer, would I have said that? Would I have made light of it in that way? So as a personal reflection, it's something I have to think about my own attitudes. I still feel awkward discussing about why I do or don't do certain things to friends, because I worry that if I say, well, I've been diagnosed with depression and I'm still having treatment, will they view me differently? So it's something I don't think will ever go in that way.